Video 7 of best-selling author Michael Singer's Living Untethered, Learning to Let Go, coming up right after this. Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Yoel, so grateful to have you. And in today's video, we're going to continue with our series on best-selling author Michael Singer's amazing book, Living Untethered. And we're going to talk about the section entitled Learning to Let Go. As I've mentioned before, I've got my notebook, so if I'm looking down, that's the reason why, and forgive me for that as I check my notes. So let's dive right in. We're going to start with the first chapter in this part 7 of the book. Again, the part 7 is called Learning to Let Go, and the first chapter of this section is called Techniques for Freeing Yourself. So Singer starts off by saying, when we store inside of us the experience that bothered us, we build an internal house of horrors. As long as you have that inside, you will suffer. Really does sound like a house of horrors, doesn't it? Sounds scary. So we know we want to free ourselves, but how? Sincere intent and awareness is the most important element. And then you commit to letting go of your blockages. I'll say that again. Sincere intent and awareness is the most important element. Then you commit to letting go of your blockages. That's all it takes. Now, Michael Singer goes through a few different techniques. The third technique we're going to talk about is the one that he really focuses the attention of this book on, but there are other techniques to get you into that mindset of letting go. So technique number 1 is called positive thinking. I'm sure many of you out there have heard about this idea. And basically what that means is that every time you have a negative thought, you replace it with a positive one. Okay, and that's based on the teachings of Yogananda. He wrote the famous book, Autobiography of a Yogi, which I have here on my bookshelf. I forgot to take it out before the video. I'll try to remember to link that link to that in the description, where you can purchase it on Amazon. Autobiography of a Yogi. It's an excellent book, and Yogananda uses that technique. Okay, so that's positive thinking. So for example, we talked about the idea of automatic thoughts, right? When thoughts are automatically generated. So let's say, for example, you've got an annoying driver, or a driver that seems annoying to you anyways, in front of you. Okay, so notice it and commit to an opposite approach for your spiritual growth. What does that mean? So instead of focusing on the fact that you have this negative thought of like, what an idiot, how can the guy drive like this? Start creating positive thoughts. For example, wow, this is an excellent opportunity for spiritual growth. I can exercise my patience here. So it's actually great that I've got this driver in front of me. Okay. Now, Singer says, don't worry about the negative thoughts that are running in the background. Okay. We have our experiences, our conditioning, some scaras we're going to talk a lot about in this video. We still have all of that, of course. Don't worry about that. Just focus on replacing as many negative thoughts that come up as you can with a positive one. And that's an example. Technique number 2, you may have heard of this as well, is known as mantra. Okay, so Singer says we all have layers of the mind. Someone can be speaking, for example, and you're listening, but there's still other thoughts that are going on in the background. I know for myself, I go to spinning classes, and oftentimes, even though I'm spinning on that bike and my feet are moving on the pedals and I'm moving, and the bike wheel anyways is moving, it's a stationary bike, I can find myself completely thinking about a business deal, something that happened to me yesterday, last week, whatever the case may be, I find myself completely distracted. In fact, as I recorded this video, I had thought that I put my phone on silent, but apparently the vibrate is on because I got a new phone. And speaking of negativity, I find that my thoughts are taking me to a frustrated place, like who's calling? I have a good idea who's calling. And of course, he calls me just as I start recording this video, all the negative ideas. So an example could be, wow, this is an excellent opportunity. I can use this as an experience to grow, to be okay with what's transpiring with my phone ringing. I could call the person back. It's good that I don't always have to pick up the phone right away. I can use it as an opportunity for learning in this video. I'm using it as an example for you, the viewer. So there's an example right now as we speak of using a positive, making something, replacing a negative thought with a positive one. Okay, and back to mantra, which is what we were talking about. Well, I was talking about the idea of the negative thoughts that are in the background. And with mantra, we have that idea. We have a layer of the mind where we could be thinking something even as we do something else. That's what I was saying before. So what mantra is repeating a word or a phrase over and over again, such that it gets so stuck in your mind that you've created another layer of the mind. And you don't fight your other thoughts. So you don't fight the thoughts that this person is calling as I'm recording this video, but rather you shift your consciousness to that mantra. Okay. And you're basically shifting from one layer of the mind to the mantra layer of the mind. Now, Singer contrasts the two techniques we talked about. Whereas before, positive thinking is working to neutralize negative thoughts, with mantra, you're shifting the focus to the other layer of the mind. Okay, now, by the way, mantra doesn't have to be anything religious. It can be, if you like that. It can be a religious statement, but it doesn't have to be religious. It can be something as simple as, I am always okay. I am always okay. Just as an example, that could be a mantra. Okay, it takes repetition, and you can pursue it as a morning routine. So you can use mantra in your morning meditation, which we're going to get into meditation a little bit later on in this video, or you can do it while you're shaving, while you're eating, while you're showering. You can do it any time as you're breathing, when you're watching your breath. Again, as we'll get into as part of meditation, you can have a mantra as you're watching your breath. You can use mantra anytime, any activity, okay? Now, one day, Singer says, when you've practiced mantra, you may find yourself on the verge of losing it. But instead of losing it, you shift your attention to that mantra. And because you've practiced it, okay? It's kind of like a safety net, Singer says, to catch you if you start to fall, okay? It's like a vacation from the personal mind. You are letting yourself surrender the hold that the personal mind has on you by shifting to that other layer of the mind, that mantra layer of the mind. So those are the first two techniques we talked about, okay? Positive thinking is technique one, and I should have brought my whiteboard, and technique two is mantra. Technique three is witness consciousness, which I have talked about in earlier videos, and that consists of relaxing and releasing. So this is deeper than the other two techniques because it doesn't involve working with the mind at all. In fact, it simply involves noticing that you are noticing what the mind is doing. Say that again, noticing that you are noticing what the mind is doing. Don't get bothered by the mind, okay? Because then what you do is you leave the seat of consciousness and objective observation, and you're trying to change the mind. Instead, be willing to let the thoughts be as they may, and simply be aware that you are aware of them. Okay, so for this example, by the way, this person is continuing to call as we speak. So I am aware that my mind is telling me to be distracted and disturbed by this person calling. Relax and release. You can relax and release it. You don't even have to work with the mind. So back to Singer's book, when you relax and release your thoughts, you actually provide space for the release of the samskaras causing you to feel disturbed. Remember, samskaras are those blockages that we've stored over our entire life. There's no struggle, because eventually you're creating a distance, and we're going to return to this idea. You're creating a distance between the seat of self and the noisy mind, or the noisy cell phone. It's the distance between the subject, you are the subject, and you are observing the object. Spirituality is not about changing the objects you're looking at. It's about accepting the objects, but not getting sucked into them. It's about being detached and feeling at peace with whatever your heart and mind are doing. So I can notice that I'm being distracted by this cell phone ringing, but I can be at peace with the fact that this distraction is happening. It's really an amazing concept. The mind chatters as minds do because it's not okay. As you start to become more okay, there's less for the mind to chatter about. When you're in the presence of someone you love, for example, you don't have to think about how do you find love for that person. It's just there. Likewise, when you're okay, you won't have to start thinking about how to be okay. You'll just be okay. When you relax into witness consciousness, you are surrendering to the release of what's happening. It will be uncomfortable for a while at first as you learn this is a new skill, as you learn this new skill. The uncomfortability is the expression of releasing uncomfortable samskaras, Singer says. They were stored with pain, and they're going to release with pain. But this is the pain that ends all pain. Love that. And that's the end of that chapter. The next chapter is called Low-Hanging Fruit. So Singer says the best way to learn witness consciousness is to practice it. Just like anything, just like playing a musical instrument or sports, the best way to learn is by practicing it. So Singer suggests starting with what he calls low-hanging fruit. Simple things such as like we talked about before, the guy in front of you is driving slowly. Okay, it could be the rain, as I may get into later on. I know Singer talks about this in this chapter. The cost-benefit analysis of getting angry or worked up, as Singer says, about a slow driver is 100% cost and 0% benefit. You're in the habit of resisting it and wanting to change it. If you're wise, you're going to start to change your reactions to the reality that's unfolding in front of you instead of trying to fight with reality. You are training yourself to deal with yourself. So whether it's a slow driver or the weather, what you're doing is to relax and release behind it, not try and fight with it because it's reality. Once again, fighting it is 0% benefit. Letting go, relaxing and releasing it, accepting reality is 100% benefit. And in reality, Singer says, you're way back inside witnessing your body. Okay? You are witnessing how your mind is reacting to the rain falling when you didn't want it to rain, quote unquote. If you relax and release, you move away from the mind and move away from that part of the mind that wants to complain about it. Now, two things happen when you relax and release. Number one, you stop fighting with the causes of your disturbed mind. And that gives samskaras room to release those energies. Number two, you are relaxing into the seat of self, as we talked about. And in doing so, you are growing spiritually. You accustom yourself to do this, and you start with working on the small situations, a low-hanging fruit. And in that way, because low-hanging fruit is happening all the time, you're growing spiritually every single day. Note, by the way, letting go does not absolve you of life's responsibility, as I talked about in the earlier video. You still have to go to your job. You go out, and if you lose your job, you go out and look for another job. You're not letting go of responsibilities. You're letting go of your personal reactions to what transpires. You still do your responsibilities, and we're going to talk about that more later on. Your personal reaction doesn't help, but rather it hinders your ability to make good decisions. Your mind may tell you that this is what's helping you, and your mind is actually there to protect you, but in reality, when you're making decisions out of samskaras, you're not helping yourself at all. 0 benefit, as we talked about. Most situations, Singer says, will be low-hanging fruit. The only reason there's a problem is because you defined it that way. Therefore, not reacting and trying to fix that problem. Therefore, nothing outside you can fix the problem. Only you on the inside can. That's the end of that chapter. That takes us to a very important topic, and this chapter is called The Past. So Singer starts with an analogy, or maybe it's a metaphor. You're driving down the street and you see a billboard, and that reminds you of somebody who's aggravated you from your past, and you get disturbed. To what end? You think to yourself, oh, I don't want to go through with that person again. I don't want to ever anything to do with that person. I don't want to think about that person. I don't want to remember what happened. And what's going on there? That's your mind talking. That's a samskara. And Singer says it's the example, and to use another metaphor or analogy, I should have checked that up before I started this video. Think about the idea of saying that you tasted bad food, and in order to not have that experience of tasting bad food, you better taste that every single day for the rest of your life. Okay? Because that way you'll know how sick it made you. It's absurd. We don't do that with food, right? If you tasted bad food and it was bad for you, then you're not going to taste that bad food again. So why do we do it with experiences? Why is it that we see a billboard, we start thinking like, I better not have that bad experience again. I better not think of that person. I better stuff that out of my memory, blah, 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 blah. And the mind starts chattering and chattering. We do that with bad experiences. We would never do it with food. But so why do we do that with bad experiences? Why do we give way to the mind? Why do we give way to the samskara, Singer says? So your past, as you see, is a very ripe area for spiritual growth. Being bothered by the past, again, has 0 benefit, 100% cost. It will become a part of your experience, but without leaving those samskara scars. You will learn from the experience and you will grow. Think about the professional athlete who just repeats and repeats and repeats his trade and repeats his skill. Okay? They do it so often that it becomes a part of their every fiber of their being, and they become completely integrated with the sport that they're playing. That's how your past should be. It should be there when you need it. It's integrated into you. It's part of your past. You experienced it, but it should not be bothering you when you don't need it. And here's an exercise Singer says. Look at the room around you, okay? Take a second now, look around and see what's in the room that you're sitting in. Describe what you see. Now, when you're fully integrated, you can describe what you see without storing it in your mind, okay? There's a sofa, there's a table, there's a seat, there's an oven, there's a stove, whatever the case may be. You simply process what's in the room without your mind taking over, without being taken over by your mind on it, without storing it in you as this blockage, okay? It's just integrated. What you see is what's in the room in front of you. That's it. It's part of your experience. You will see, Singer says, that as you allow these experiences to come in without suppressing it or trying to store it as these blockages, and when I say trying, you're not even consciously doing it anymore. Your mind is kind of taken over. But as you let these experiences come in, they won't be stored as blockages. And the blockages that you do have stored will continue to disappear as that energy and those samskaras get released. And we're going to talk about techniques for helping you do that. And all that's left is the energy without those blockages, as we talked about in the previous video with those diagrams that I used on the whiteboard. The energy will be flowing up freely without the blockages, okay? A free flow of energy going all the way up. Remember the pipe analogy, right? The energy is flowing up, and if there's no blockages, it's not spraying out, and it's not being blocked, it's going straight up. So how do you let go of the past when you've already stored it, though? Okay, you've already stored it as a blockage, so how do you let go of that past? So Singer says the blockage will continue to come up. Don't worry about that. Blockages will come up. And when that happens, let them go. You simply notice that there's a disturbance there. That's it. You notice it and then you let it go. You know you're about to get upset at it. And when you do that, that's when your practices will kick in and you'll say, no, I'm not going to react to it. I'm going to relax and release, just like I did with the cell phone. And we're going to talk about techniques about that soon. But that's what it involves, okay? So don't worry about the fact that you have stored blockages and you have those samskaras in your past. They'll continue to come up because energy always wants to release. So this time when it comes up, you notice it, you observe it, you relax and you release behind it. And that's the most important work you can do, Singer says. Surrender is the act of letting go instead of resisting, okay? It's definitely uncomfortable, Singer says. Okay, just like we said before, it's stored with pain and it's going to release with pain. But it's going to keep pushing back up again. So would you rather keep trying to block it back and keep trying to suppress it down so that it keeps trying to release and back and forth for the rest of your life? Or would you rather just relax and release behind it and observe it? It's the pain that ends all pain, Singer says. Your blocked past is going to keep you from finding, he says, God, you can say the universe, bliss, whatever you want to put there, it doesn't matter. These blockages are keeping you from having a beautiful life. And I'll tell you, I added a note here about a personal story. When I went to visit Michael Singer this past summer, and he was so gracious to take some time with me, we talked about a certain subject. I don't want to get into it on this video, but something I had talked to him about, and he quite quickly pointed out to me how this was a blockage in the samskara. And he told me it's blocking me from finding love and feeling love and experiencing love. It's just blocking me. And he was very strong in how he said it to me. That's how passionate Michael Singer was. And since I met him, I've been doing work on that one subject that I was talking to him about. And I really see what he means. I really have been feeling a certain love and energy in a place where I never felt it before. Again, that's not to say that I'm perfect and that I'm a guru, that I don't have plenty of work to do. It's a lifelong experience. Okay, of course I do. But I've noticed that as I've been doing this work of relaxing and releasing and letting go, Singer was right. I've been feeling love in those places instead of the blockages that I was feeling before. So I'm telling you from personal experience, it really does work. And that's a personal encounter that I had with Michael Singer this past summer. So grateful for it. Now, Singer says, back to the book, the same sincere effort that you put into a relationship or making money or whatever the case may be, you've got to put that sincere effort into releasing your blockages. It's that important. It's the most important work. Freeing yourself is worth the discomfort of letting go. Imagine being able to enjoy the world as it unfolds in front of you. What's that worth, Singer says. It doesn't matter what happened. You can look back and say thank you. Life is a sequence of experiences you experience. Learn to love and appreciate your past. Embrace it and let go of any judgment that there was anything wrong with it. Your past is uniquely yours. It's sacred. It's beautiful. Nobody else ever had your past, nor will they ever have it. Love it to the death. It's just so beautiful. So that's the end of that chapter, and that takes us to some more technique. We talked about techniques, obviously, of replacing negative thoughts with positive ones, and mantra, and then relaxing and releasing. But Singer kind of drills down in the relaxing and releasing with techniques within that technique of relaxing and releasing, if you will. So this chapter is entitled Meditation, and obviously all of you have heard of meditation. And Singer starts off by saying that there are many types of meditations, but the bottom line is that all of them are about letting go of your addiction to focusing on your thoughts. Okay? What you're doing is you're focusing on your breath. You're feeling the energy. You can use mantra, we talked about, anything but your thoughts. Relaxing and releasing thoughts in the meditation will allow you to continue to get better at doing it throughout your day. The first step is to commit to doing it, as we talked about before. Commit. Just 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening is an excellent start. Now, that may sound like a lot to you, but think about all the other things you commit to. That may be going to the gym. And by the way, these are important things. But think about what you commit to. You commit to, let's say, going to the gym, your job, your relationship, your spouse, your children, whatever it is you're committing to. All of them are important. But what Singer says is that why not commit to your spiritual practice, which is actually more important than anything you will do, because that's going to affect your entire life. By the way, don't expect some sort of spiritual or mystical experience. A lot of people, I've heard a lot of friends say this, they think meditation sounds like this thing that, yogis do out in the Himalayas or something like that. It's not like that at all, okay? Don't expect this like mystical experience. What you're doing is you're practicing watching yourself, letting go of your thoughts. That's it. The reason you sit down to meditate is to learn how to remain conscious inside while your mind creates thoughts and your heart creates emotions. This is called mindful meditation, often referred to as mindfulness. I've added myself. Singer calls it mindful meditation, and I added the mindfulness component. Now, let's say, for example, you're meditating and you say, oh my gosh, my mind just won't shut up. I've heard a lot of people say that. A lot of friends have said, I don't know how to turn off my thoughts. Well, what Singer says is if you sit down to meditate and you say that your mind won't shut up, that's actually good, okay? You've noticed your thoughts. So it's a form of witness consciousness. If you practice playing piano, for example, and you make a mistake, does that mean it's a bad practice? No, that's part of practicing. That's part of learning. It's part of developing and growing. Just be present. Even if you don't like what you see inside, you're learning to be at peace with what used to drive you crazy. So for example, a ringing telephone, as I said before, may have driven me crazy in the past. Sometimes, by the way, again, not to say this out of arrogance, but I've advanced to a certain level of awareness and consciousness that I don't remember how I was in the past. Sometimes I've had to have good friends remind me of how I was, okay? But I do, for example, a telephone that's going off while I record a video, I can't say I remember how much it would drive me crazy, but I do think it would drive me crazy in the past. But today, I'm able to use it as a spiritual exercise, okay? And that only comes with repetition and practice. And that's only because I've read Singer's book over and over and over again. As you can see, it's dog-eared, and there's all sorts of notes in it and whatnot. Here are my notes all over the place, okay? But that comes with repetition and practice. So, if I have those experiences, it's only because I've been doing it longer than you. But if you've bought the book and you're watching these videos and you're doing all sorts of spiritual practices, or you're committing to doing them, then keep going, because you're going to see amazing results. I guarantee it. I speak from personal experience, okay? And again, we're all learning together and growing together, and I'm so grateful that you're watching this video, but keep at it, okay? Now, Singer next says, okay, he's used a strong word of addiction, but really, you're actually addicted to your mind, okay? So you stay so absorbed in your thoughts and you end up following where they take you. And that's all part of the whole idea of samskaras, all right? Our conditioning and our experiences in the past and things that we've blocked, we get addicted to our thoughts. We think we have to follow our thoughts. It's an addiction. So changing your relationship on your mind is a major part of your spiritual journey. You don't gain anything by fighting with the mind. What you do is you observe and learn not to listen to the mind, okay? And my cell phone is ringing again. More opportunities for spiritual growth. Relaxing and releasing, observing that I'm noticing that my mind is telling me, why does this person keep calling over and over? That's a samskara that I have, okay? Some would call it a pet peeve. When somebody calls repeatedly and I'm not answering, in my mind, it's like, why does he keep calling? He knows I'm busy. I'm going to call him back. Continuing to call is not helpful. So I noticed that it's something that bothers my mind. And it's like, wow, my mind is bothered by a ringing cell phone over and over again. So am I going to react to that? Am I going to say, shut up, stop ringing? Am I going to curse at the phone? Am I going to curse at the guy? Or am I going to create that space between the reaction and say, I'm going to breathe and relax and release? By the way, I'm not saying that you have to go through this whole long exercise every time some low-hanging fruit, and this is a low-hanging fruit experience. I'm pointing there because that's where my mobile phone is. So every time a low-hanging fruit comes up, maybe in the beginning you go through this whole type of exercise, but eventually it becomes automated and integrated, like we talked about, like the professional athlete whose sport is integrated with the athlete. Okay, so don't think that it has to be 10 minutes every time a low-hanging fruit comes up. But in the beginning, certainly it will be a bit of a longer process. Back to Singer's book, he says, when you watch the breath, you see just how powerful the mind is, how the mind wants to keep distracting you, okay? And the mind is going to want to distract you from the breath. And when that happens, when you are distracted from the breath, just notice that it's happening. Don't fight again. Just keep watching the breath and go back to your breath. Don't fight it. Slowly but surely, you take back the reins of the mind and you stop letting yourself be controlled by it. And by the way, a good way to do this, in case I haven't made this clear before, is to count the breaths, okay? But don't count too high. Don't say I'm going to count to 100, because realistically, your mind is going to distract you before you get to 100 anyways. You can start with 20 or 25 breaths, and even if you get distracted by breath number 2, for example, or even breath 1, don't fight it. Just say, okay. Start counting again, and you'll notice how the mind continues to distract you. But as you're observing the breath, you'll see you'll start to get better and better. And whereas maybe you couldn't get past breath 1, soon you'll start getting past to breath 2, and onwards and onwards and onwards. That's just part of practice and repetition. And that's the end of that chapter, leading to the last chapter in this section 7 of Letting Go, and that's entitled Handling the Bigger Stuff. So Singer says, life is your guru. Everything that happens in life is an opportunity to get better and to free yourself from yourself. If you remain centered in the seat of consciousness, as your past samskaras are released, you will become a more conscious being. You will eventually remain centered during the entire difficult experience. So rather than having to bring yourself back by relaxing and releasing, eventually it will become so integrated that you will be centered throughout the entire experience. You won't have to bring yourself back to anything. You're going to be centered as it's happening. How amazing is that? All this stuff is going to continue to come up, but only you have the power to decide what to do with it. You will have time like you've never had before between the event and your reaction to it. With that more time, you will use that to relax and release behind it. And again, from personal experience, I have noticed having more time than I've ever had before in many experiences. Again, I slip and fall as well because I'm still in training. Like Singer says, if you're learning to play the piano and you make a wrong note, you hit the wrong key, that's fine. That's part of practice. I slip up from time to time as well. Of course, I'm saying it like, like the big guru. I'm not a big guru. I'm saying I'm just trying to share that I slip up a lot. There's been a lot of times I get a message. I have a whole video, if I remember to add a card over here, on responding to text messages in a centered, conscious way. Okay. But oftentimes my mind gets the best of me and wins the battle, so to speak, because it's not a battle. That's not a good analogy. It's not a battle, but my mind wins and I will react quickly. But other times, whereas in the past I would have reacted quickly every time, I've created that space where it's like, I could observe what's happening, and now I'm going to respond in a more centered, conscious way. So I'm telling you, what Singer promises will happen if you continue to practice and repeat it. So Singer says, automatically the bigger stuff is going to start to come up. because energy is always trying to push up, like we talked about. Okay, that's a good thing. That's life helping you out. You don't have to do anything but keep letting go, keep committing. Always let go of your human reactions first. So what does Singer mean by those human reactions? So use the example of, let's say you have a child who gets in trouble at school and you get called into a meeting with the principal. Automatically your mind starts thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. I know from personal experience, as a divorced man, I've got my ex-wife. So it's like, oh my gosh, what's my ex going to say? I'm going to have to, speak to her about this, and maybe she's going to say this, and maybe we're going to have a disagreement, and we're going to have to come to terms with this, and we're both going to be meeting there, and yada, 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 yada. And the mind just goes crazy. But none of that has anything to do with dealing with the issue at hand, which is, what do you do about the fact that your child did something that has to be addressed? Okay, so that's what Singer calls your human reaction. Your human reaction has nothing to really do with the issue at hand. Okay, and as we talked about before, you still deal with life. Letting go doesn't absolve you with handling life. You still have a responsibility to deal with what happened with your child. Okay, but what you do is you let go of the human reaction. How you feel about interacting with, whether it's a spouse or ex-spouse or all sorts of other things that your mind's telling you that have nothing to do with your child's conduct that has led to you getting called into the principal's office, has nothing to do with anything. So that's what you let go of. You don't let go of your responsibility to go to the meeting with the principal. So if you let go of the samskaras inside of you, they're not going to rule your life. You can truly be free of your past. And that's what living untethered means. It means to let go of yourself, to transcend your personal self, your human reactions. We're all capable of freeing ourselves. All you have to do is be willing to commit to doing that inner work. And that concludes this chapter and this section 7 of Michael Singer's fantastic Living Untethered. I hope you found this to be informative, maybe entertaining as well. I hope you enjoyed my very personal examples of the ringing cell phone. I hope I didn't go on that ad nauseum, but the phone rang a few times, so I did use it as a way of illustrating the point. As always, your feedback is welcome, whether it's constructive criticism or if it's complimentary. Either or, both of them are welcome. Both of them are opportunities for growth, for me to learn from you. And if there's a question you have, feel free to leave that below. I will do my best to address it. And if you've already subscribed to the channel, I do appreciate it. Our subscriber list has gone up, and I'm very grateful for that. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would be grateful if you did. It really helps me to grow the channel and to continue to do these videos. And it helps you as well to not miss a future video. Also, if you can like the video, hit that thumb up button. That would be appreciated as well. Okay, so we will continue with this series in the next video. But until then, thank you once again for joining, and looking forward to seeing you at the next video. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. I've got plenty more in my videos library. If there's a topic you'd like me to discuss, feel free to leave that in the comments and I'll do my best to address it. If you can like the video, I'd be very grateful. As well, if you subscribed, you'd be helping me out. You'd also be helping yourself out to not miss a future video. Thanks so much. Have a great day.